Welcome back to 2 days and two storm roundtables. Can you believe that? Are we? It is God, we're not even an hour after, we're half an hour after Media Day has wrapped up. It's the second practice for the Seattle Storm in this 2025 training camp. Quick hitters out of the way, no update on Dominique Malonga. Um, Someone asked on our blue sky on our, I don't know what we're calling it. I heard a friend of mine call it a skeet. I don't like that. On our post on blue sky, that they were like, is she injured? Is it a visa thing? I said no. As far as we're aware, right, her team got eliminated from the playoffs on Wednesday, and a Storm spokesperson told us she has international commitments. I think she's just wrapping up, so I don't anticipate anything crazy, right? Brianna Fraser not with the team today. The plan is for her to be there tomorrow, but that's not a guarantee. So, oh, and Christian was asked a question about this on Twitter: Is are these players who are suspended their contracts, Nika Mule, Jordan Horston, are they allowed to be around the team? As Rowan and I saw, Nika Mule, Jordan Horston, both around. Jordan was kind of hiding, tucked away behind one of the uh, uh, at the courts. They have these little areas where you got a bunch of equipment, right? Jordan was hanging out over there, so yeah, they're around. No, I mean it was cool. I think there's not too much to take away from Media Day. There's a lot of like basic questions. There's a lot of what you've done in as a tourist questions, which was interesting. Um, but no, I mean just to, hear from some of these players, interesting to get their thoughts on, how this roster is going to play out, right? And I think that's the main thing we want to talk about today because as Rowan and I were watching the end of practice that media is allowed to see, and as Christian kind of laughed at me about, I've got my little notebook and I've got my written out thoughts, right, on who's in and who's out, and your untouchables per se, right? I'll try to see. I don't think there was anything actually before I get into it. Um, Sounds mean, and I'm sorry. Rowan, because you were there with me, is there anything that you saw in the short bit of practice that we were able to witness or in media day that you think is notable that we should bring up that isn't just kind of, I'm excited to be here and, I love the facility? Because, I mean, we've heard that and that is standard. And it's great that some of these players like Zaya Cook mentioned it. I think Lexi Brown mentioned it that, they have a facility. It's good to get that, but that is kind of general talk. Is there anything that you saw? And then Christian, anything maybe that stuck out to you um, from Media Day? Because I know there's some stuff you put out as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see on your little notepad there, we were kind of running through untouchables, potential cuts, depth charts, basically the entire time. We were just kind of chatting. And I think the thing that really stood out to me most when listening to the interviews that I didn't think was going to, was actually listening to Erica Wheeler kind of talk about um, what her role has been on the team so far. And I only say that because yesterday, we were kind of talking about these players that are kind of on the bubble, so to say, of, not necessarily an untouchable, but also definitely we could see them, being an option. And yesterday I was mentioning that I thought that really where Erica Wheeler makes a case for herself on making the roster is just knowing how the Storm values veteran presence in a leadership role. And I thought it was really interesting. I don't have the direct quote here, but she basically said something along the lines of that she has been able to take a step back and take a back seat in leadership wise because of Nneka Ogwumike and Skylar Diggins. And that was kind of immediate, like not red flags, sirens to me of, oh, interesting. So they're not looking to have her in that role. And so that kind of completely changed how I am thinking of her being on this roster, and honestly makes it makes a little bit less of a case for her for me. Just knowing that they seem to have the leadership on lock, and just knowing who else there are options wise and what the Storm is looking for right now, in terms of guards, especially 3-point shooting and just offensive production. I just don't know if Erica Wheeler is really that fit right now. And so that was kind of the thing that stood out to me most, was just knowing what she's looked like in camp so far. But just being there and, seeing again, you can tell that they're really focused on the 3-point shooting right now. And that is what they're looking for from all of those guards that they acquired. We sat there and watched Serena Sundell, Madison Connor, and Jordan Hobbs shoot threes for, what felt like a good half an hour. They're just, spot shooting around the 3-point line. And that was just really interesting to be like, okay, so this is just reaffirming that this is what they are looking for right now. Um, and I think the only other thought that I have, just thinking about depth wise, when you're looking at, Lexi Brown has, kind of been talked about as a backup point guard. Like we've kind of been throwing around Lexi Brown, Zaya Cook, Erica Wheeler, Serena Sundell, kind of like who's going to be that like backup point guard. You can't necessarily give all four of them a spot. And I just think it's interesting that I think at this point, Lexi Brown, just from a shooting perspective, she definitely has an edge there. It sounds like Noelle Quinn's, has talked a lot about her shooting, but then with Zaya Cook, she has this edge where it sounds, she said something in her interview that kind of made it sound like they've been really relying on her for defense. That Noelle Quinn has been really interested in her defensively. So I just think it kind of complicates things a little bit, just trying to figure out who will get that last spot. And I think Serena Sundell, her form from behind the arc looked beautiful today. It looked really, I haven't really been able to see a lot of her like in practice shooting, but she just has a lot quicker of a release than I think I kind of realized from three. And that height, like you can really see that height. So I don't know. I've been just thinking about which guard is going to make the cut at this point, and I think I got a little bit of clarity, and it's interesting to see what they're kind of looking for in each guard. So
What's funny is I had no idea that Erica was gonna kind of respond like that because the original question was just, you keep hearing the term veteran presence and veteran leadership and veteran this, veteran that. But like, what does that actually mean to you as a player, as an athlete, as a professional? And then, you have Erica come in and basically just say, I haven't had to do that. That's a weight off my shoulders. This is kind of something I haven't had to, worry about in this stuff that I've had to do in other stuff. And it's like, well, that's kind of one of the main reasons why they kept saying that's why they kind of brought you in on a training camp deal. And you think about it, you have players like Katie Samuelson, you have Ezzy McGregor, who has been talked about, really since the season officially started, that they're looking for her to kind of be that veteran player now entering, I believe her fifth season now, fifth or sixth, I think it's fifth. Kind of play that NECA role last year, that she played with her as Ezzy. Well, that's going to be kind of crazy considering that Ezzy is now the longest senior Storm player on the roster. Um, mind-boggling. Still can't wrap my head around that one. But yeah, that was one thing that I feel like that was kind of like, okay, well, we'll see how that pans out during training camp. Um, there were a lot of questions about Dominique Malonga not being there yet, and like, I mean, I get it, but I don't understand that not everyone has seen like a lot of the reports and things. But you would think that, by now they would understand that, hey, she's still there. She's not going to be here like the first couple of days. Maybe not till halfway through next month. And that's cool. I mean, she's 19. She's one of the most talented players coming into the league. And to be honest, with her skill set, I mean, do you really need to teach her basketball? I mean, she's probably one of the most easily integrated, not interchangeable, but right, whatever that word is.
Like plug
Yeah,
and play.
yeah, plug and play. Yeah, plug and play. Basically, I mean that type of skill set, that type of athleticism, that type of height package. You just put her anywhere and she's going to produce. Um, I think honestly, the rookies, man, that's it's gonna be a great camp. Madison Connor's personality, you know, it's not like she's been in Texas for a while. You can hear it. She's gonna be a media favorite, that's for sure. You know, we have all been there at some point, interviewing athletes, where there's a lot of space as far as, speaking to them and asking questions and stuff. She won't leave any. So that's kind of what I'm excited for. As far as those like one-on-one or pre or post game things. Like you guys said, Brianna Fraser is there. What was the update? She'd be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I asked about it because I believe, with the ESPN report about Malonga, they threw in Fraser at the end saying that, she was supposed to arrive in Seattle on Monday evening, which, oh, I'm stupid. That would be today tonight. Um, God, time is fake. And yeah, I talked to a Storm spokesperson and they said the plan is that she's supposed to be present tomorrow. I don't know because I know when Ezzy, I was talking to Rowan about this. When Ezzy got in last year, I don't think she was in right away. She was coming in from playing overseas, and they gave her a little bit of time to reacclimate, right? So I think it's a similar situation to
Well, and
that.
it didn't appear, I could be wrong. We didn't see Gabby Williams on the court today. We saw
That's
her
right.
in media, so I think that she also, I don't believe has been on the court
Oh,
in training camp. So I think that, yeah, I think that they're all just taking a little bit, if they
because
have just come over.
if I remember correctly, Gabby was like, "Damn, I just got back today." She was at something about like prioritization and talking about the CBA with NECA, and she was like, "I just got back today, like last night or something like that." So, yeah, from what I remember, I remember asking a Storm spokesperson, Frazier should be present tomorrow.
And I guess my last thing is this wasn't really talked about a lot today. Reporters, players, or Noe in general. But do you think there's an actual plan as far as the front court rotation? I mean, it's crazy to think that adding Dominique Malonga that you're still kind of short there. But you look at the roster, you have Dom, you have McKenzie, which is kind of still improving. But yet she's not really a solidified center in this league at 6'3", with her kind of her mobility at this point. You have Ezzy, she's automatically the starting center. Then of course you have um that guy that can play both. But you can see last year that there were kind of some issues when she did play center more times than not, other than like the spelling Ezzy minutes at the five.
Mm,
So I'm kind of wondering, like, what do you guys think about that going into? I mean, again, I understand it's second day of camp. They can
sure.
easily sign some play, they can easily sign some players before the season starts. But I think that's one area of the court where I'm kind of concerned about, considering you haven't really had to have that concern in years past.
So this is where I kind of want to open this floor up to kind of, I don't want to like, I'm not calling it a bloodbath, but like this is a very interesting because okay, we're back to the notepad again, right? I've got six untouchables per se, or players that should be on the roster, barring something crazy, right? With Gabby Williams, Nneka Ogwumike, Ezzy Magbagor, Skylar Diggins. I get that right. Dominique Malonga, and we threw in Alicia Clark. Just, I mean, with the money that she's dictating, in her defense, right? Like it makes sense. And then so that leaves you what? Um 10 10 yeah, wait, I said 6. Yeah, so 10 players um who you've got to, make decisions on respectively. You talk about the front court, as we talked about last night. I'm very high on Lee Rue. Very high. And I know that I think Noel talked about, her ability to not just be like a traditional five, but also be able to, as we've talked about before, stretch the floor a little bit. Um, it's tough because Rona and I had this discussion about how she's kind of playing the Mercedes role in a way, as we had last year. I just like if we're talking about the front court. Oh, okay, sorry. A thought popped into my head as well from something we saw at practice. Talking about the front court, like it's kind of interesting to carry, what, three centers in a way. I think Noe actually called Dom a forward, right? So, and I get she's very athletic. Like it's fascinating to see how you can play with her. It's hard for me in my little brain to look at this roster and not see Liru. I feel like you need that. I could be wrong, right? Stuff happens. One thing I wanted to mention that popped into my head, Rowan and I were watching Mackenzie Holmes, right? Because as Rowan texted me when we were in the media room waiting to go to practice, she doesn't make a lot. She didn't make a lot of threes. Her 3-point percentage in college was
I
not
actually
great.
have it. I have it up right now. Oh, wait, I have it up right now. It is, oh, whoops, sorry, I'm in her WNBA. Never mind. Give me one
Eh,
second.
but like the point being is like, so I mean, the scoring production was there for her in Indiana, obviously at Indiana. Sorry, not in Indiana. Whatever. But like, we saw her kind of do things that Thor would do, right? And her size, like when we saw her at UW as a grad assistant a few months ago, she looked. I hate talking about players like this, but this is part of our job. She looked thinner, right? So maybe more of a wing. Today, she looked like a four, like they would go out there and be able to handle the post, handle the paint. And she was kind of working around the elbows. And at the end, working to finish through contact. So I'm like, okay, are you mixing in a Mackenzie Holmes there at the four? Like, this
She
Ross,
to
as you all have alluded, is very interesting how you're going to build this team.
following up, she shot 23% from three in college and 63.9% from the field. So I was just noticing that because I wasn't really remembering how big of a 3 point, you know, threat she was. I wasn't really, mid range, but it was interesting today to see a lot. They seem to be working a lot on her kind of, elbow free throw line type mid range. So it seems like that's something that um, it does kind of, to me, seem like they're trying to put her more at a, power forward kind of four spot rather than at the center spot, at least just from the bit that we saw.
I mean,
Yeah,
it makes the most sense. I mean, she's never gonna be, this knockdown 3 point shooter that's giving you five, makes a game. That's probably not gonna be like the likelihood, and also that's not really what they need from her at that position. But she is a really great mid-range shooter. And at 6'3", with like I think she has like a 6'4", 6'5" wingspan, that's kind of hard to defend. And as long as she gets, stays healthy and becomes a quicker player, that there's things you can take advantage of at that spot of the floor. At the elbow, at the top of the key, that 18 to 20 foot jump shot. I mean, on twos alone, she made around like 63, 64%. So I mean, you can make it work. But that's one thing I kind of hate. Go on a tangent. When we talk about stretching the
mm.
floor means so much more than just shooting threes and opening up driving lanes. It means so much more than just taking deep shots.
So I hate to do this because Rowan and like I think all of us could sit here for hours and debate these things. If we're going here and you talk about, the front court, Mackenzie Holmes, in or out, I need it. Like, what are we doing? Because it's tough. But like, given what we saw today, and the idea of playing her at the four, um, and like you said, you get that mid-range scoring back. And in an ideal world, right, where Alexi Brown comes in and hits some threes, right? Like having a mid-range would be nice to me. I don't know. I don't know. Is there a consensus here? I would like to go in, but I want to hear thoughts on Mackenzie Holmes. Sorry.
I mean, I think, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard because like you were saying, Christian, it's also so hard for us to make any statements too, because we didn't get much from Noelle about what she wants the identity to be. And so it's like, so are we going, are you going full front court? Are you going, let's try and get this shooting? Are you trying to go like it's really hard to know. And I think that depending on the way she wants to go with the roster, that will kind of decide, Mackenzie Holmes. I think at least in this depth chart that I'm kind of going off of a little bit, that does, I again, I think we see her kind of at the four. I don't know much about Brianna Fraser. I've tried to do some research, but I do know that, she's the same height as Mackenzie Holmes. She, they really seem like very comparable players. And it seems like, again, you have to kind of balance. I know that she's averaging, I believe, 16 points overseas right now. She seems to be producing, offensively pretty well. Then you have Mackenzie Holmes, who had, I think 5 28-point games as a senior, a 30-point game as a senior. Like, and again, how do you balance overseas versus college? There's just so many unknowns with both of them. And honestly, because of that unknown that they haven't seen Mackenzie Holmes play at a professional level, I'm not really sure what they'll do, but I think that she is, I mean, to me, I think she's the best backup four option at this point. But again, yeah, it's so hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing going against McKenzie right now is the fact that there really is no film of her at the pro level yet. She's been recovering her initial rookie year, and now this is her real rookie year. But in general, as far as how that's gonna go, like Rowan said, it's hard to make you know consistent judgment when it comes to some of these players because again, there's no film or like she also said no one didn't really give us a lot to go with, I
Yeah.
mean, the breadcrumbs are pretty thin this year, but I remember being on the beat from the start last year. I'm not sure if that was just because, NECA, Gumike, and Skylar Diggins are, been in the league for a while. You have an idea of what they're going to bring to the team as leaders and as players on and off the court, but you don't really have that same, I guess, comfortability with so many players being added to a training camp roster. Maybe that also plays into it, but also to go from a team where, I mean, they scored nearly 53% of their offense inside the arc. You know, I mean, that's kind of where the bread and butter was. And to be one of the most stout defenses in the league, with Jordan Horse in the lineup up until All-Star break, they had a top three defensive rating. They were -10 when they're off the court. I mean, that's not good. But yeah, I'm not sure how to. And again, I understand it's the second day of camp. I do, but I've listened around at other media days. Like some coaches have already given some type of glimpse of what they want their teams to
Mm.
be. Doesn't really matter how many players they got on the roster. You kind of already have an idea of what you want to go to going into the season starting May 16th.
Yeah, and that makes this last kind of question maybe not as clear. What the hell are you doing at the guard positions? Because you look back, Skylar, AC, um, yeah, Skylar and AC. Like I was telling Rowan this, I think the guards that I'm the highest on, guards and wing, like Lexi Brown, I think that they really believe in Lexi Brown, and obviously she said today that she's doesn't anticipate missing any time, um, health wise. Said she's felt great. I think the past 6 months is the quote exactly. And I'll say it again. Serena Sundell continues to again. You talk about the size at the one. I we were talking. Rowan and I were talking about this, like who you'd feel comfortable, having to split at times at the one and the two of the three picks that you made. I'm taking Sundell. Like Jordan Hobbs, I'm sure Jordan Hobbs is also kind of fun. She seemed like she knew what she was ready to talk about. Pike's Place though, I mean, I don't know. You hurt the Seattleite in me. I also hate umbrellas. Uh, but just my confidence in one of these guards' abilities to play one and two, Sundell is the highest. I like Connor, great shooter. She said she takes 500 shots a day, which fascinating. My arms are tired just thinking about that. Like, I think the only thing maybe that works in Jordan Hobbs's favor for a roster spot, in my opinion, is her defensive ability. She talked about being able to guard, throughout the lineup. And you two will know this. You've heard it to death. What is Noel Quinn coach teams? What do they like to do? Guard the hell out of the basketball, right? It's the defense ability. Like all, I was surprised when she was asked about identity. She didn't talk about that. Like, there's your
That is
clear
exactly what I was
layup,
gonna say. I
right?
need to raise my hand like Christian did yesterday. I feel like I have so many things to
Fucking
say about it.
um. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're getting close to time here, and I'm sure we'll probably do more of these through camp, right? Just from what we see and anything we hear and updates like that, like when we get Dom in town. But I don't know. Any thoughts on the guards? Um, before we get at it, because like it's fascinating. You look at again Lexi Brown, Zaya Cook, Erica Wheeler, Sundell, Connor. Um, oh, I didn't write Hobbs down. Awkward. Maybe that is what I think about it. Anyway, yeah. Any guard thoughts before we get out of here?
I would love to have a few. I mean, I think like this is all I've been thinking. Like, I feel like this kept me up at night. I'm like thinking like, how are you going to do all this with all these guards? But I again, like I do think that today, um, I wouldn't say offered clarity because it didn't. It actually was that there was no clarity. So I guess the thing is like I have so many different thoughts of who would make a roster if Noel was saying we're going defense. Like we are staying, with what we always talk about. But you're right that I felt like last year was just like every question the answer was defense. The past 2 years, honestly, and
Yep.
this time was not so much. And so again, I think if you're really wanting to go focus on defense, I think it sounds like Zaya Cook is someone that if they did want to go that route, they would be looking into her a bit more. Where, again, Madison Connor, I will admit that I didn't watch a lot of TCU this year. I'm not really sure how she was defensively as much. So I'd like to hear if either of you know more. But I think that, maybe Isaiah Cook has an edge on a Madison Connor. If you're going defensively, same with Jordan Hobbs, like you're saying, I think she definitely is kind of one of the ones that I think she would really have to show her defense in camp to make a spot. I think that if that's what they were focusing on, but I think if you're going for shooting, we were watching, all three of the rookies, obviously without Dominique Malonga, shooting today, and I think Serena Sundell and Madison Connor were a bit stronger in that regard. So like I can't say right now, any way. I think Lexi Brown feels a bit more untouchable to me at this point because I think she can do both. But again, like you were mentioning with Mackenzie Holmes, it's hard because we don't have a lot of film on Lexi Brown from the past few years, unfortunately. And I'm really glad to hear that she's feeling better, and I'm really excited to see her, coming in a bit stronger. But I just feel like it's so hard to make any definitive statements because we don't know what direction anyone wants to go in at this point.
Ooh,
And that's kind of one of the things that I feel like we can talk about very quick. 3 minutes, okay. So one thing we haven't talked about, there is no set starter at the two spot for the Storm right now. I can't name one. I don't think you guys can either. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that you have 8 guards in the roster. I think you have to make 5 cuts. There's a good possibility that half the cuts on this team are going to be guards. Um, the way the team and personnel have talked about Lexi Brown, Jaya Cook, I think those players are pretty much locked to make the roster. Again, it's early, but you don't say these things unless you actually mean them. You don't go out there and again say them multiple times, and you appreciate Jaya Cook's experience, and then her playing last year, previous years with Lee Rue and NECA in LA, like those things matter. Like those relationships matter, especially playing with Lexi. Like those in that same backcourt, that chemistry is going to help, fuel it. Basically, a group that really doesn't have a lot of time together. Like maybe away from other teams, but play on the same team. They don't have that type of camaraderie yet, but they will. Other than that, I mean, the guards, man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Madison Carter is exactly the most lockdown defender, but on a team like this, I don't really think she has to be. I mean, she could be a plus defender, but she doesn't have to be like the archetype of Gary Payton or something like that. But yeah, we're gonna see how it's gonna go. Only day 2 of camp, but this roster's gonna be crazy, man.
it is. We got. No, Rowan, go ahead.
My last thought with Madison Connor that's interesting is I feel like in college, it's this kind of thing where like you can, she played enough, she had enough reps that she could be that shooter and her defense didn't matter as much. But I think the thing that is difficult when you get to the WNBA is that it's like, will she really be in the game enough to get enough reps for her shooting to actually be impactful if she can't defend at the level that Noe wants. Like it's hard to be a role player of coming in and just shooting threes if you're not getting those reps of being in game. And I think that so if they were really just like taking her as a shooter, that's my kind of red flag of I'm not really sure that that's really going to be super effective.
Real quick before we get out of here, perfect example for what you just said, Rowan. Maddie Sig is coming from Villanova, going to the pros in Dallas. One of the best scorers in college basketball over the last couple of years when she was in college. Goes to Dallas, was kind of slow footed. Took some time, playing at AU. Now, one of the most underrated players under the age of 24 in the league. Easily, and I don't know why she's not starting in some of those units in training camp so far, but we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of my reference towards that.
This is where again I will pound the table and wish this league had like a development, like as Christian said last night, send them down to the coma. Like, I mean, I would love to let any of these rookies that doesn't make this roster ultimately develop more. I would love to, try and be okay with Jordan Hobbs and tell her it's Pike. I'm gonna stop that bit. You know, like it's I would love to see Mackenzie Holmes round out and hopefully get back to the shooter that she was. You know, it is going to be fascinating. It is day 2 of camp, as Christian said. We've got a preseason game on Sunday. Can you believe that? Like, I kind of forgot about that. I gotta get a photographer out there on Sunday. So, I guess the other big piece of news, and it's very small. I'll finish it up because I know Rowan wants to go. Um, all these preseason games are going to be broadcast, which is great because I was in Minnesota last year when this preseason game happened in Seattle. I couldn't watch it. No
At
idea
least
what
it ain't in
happened.
Canada.
Well, there you go. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Well, till we see you next time. I mean, as you can tell, all three of us were really fascinated by this team, and we could
For the
talk more.
record, I don't want to go. I have to go. I would love to keep talking basketball with you all. So
Yeah.
just have
So
to
you
set the
can
record
see
straight
we
there.
will probably see a lot more. You know, we're also excited just for Storm basketball to be back and to, you know, get into the nitty-gritty with these teams. Get our you know, pull the sleeves up, get in there. So, all right. Till we see you next time. I could stop showing off my pale arms. Take care of yourself. I live in Seattle, right? I don't see a lot of sun. The Filipino in me will come out when I get more sun, as you can see with my face. Till we see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, were you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports. So I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.